My name's Ingrid Van Putten. I work for CSIRO and I'm an economist by trade, or a researcher with CSIRO. I've been working on this communities project, as we've called it, with Stuart Frasher from IMAS, the University of Tasmania, and Nadine Marshall in Townsville from, she's CSIRO as well, and Malcolm Tull, who's at Murdoch University, as well as Sarah Metcalf, who's at Murdoch in WA.
The project that we've just completed, which is funded by the Fisheries Research and Development Corporation and the Department of Climate Change and Energy Efficiency, was focusing on what the combined impacts of climate change are on coastal communities throughout Australia. We focused on marine communities because we know that in certain areas that the seas are actually changing quite rapidly, particularly here in Tasmania, where we've got one of the fastest warming regions globally. But other than just looking at industry by industry, here we wanted to look at what the combined impacts were across all industries, such as agriculture, recreational fishing, commercial fishing, marine tourism. And then we wanted to know what those impacts would be on the communities, so we could actually follow some of those, the biological changes, and how they were going to impact the community with respect to positive and negative outcomes.
We looked at the impact of marine climate change on coastal communities, and we had 3 case study communities, one in Tasmania, which is where Stuart and I are based, one in Bowen, which is near Townsville, where Nadine Marshall is based, and one in Geraldton in WA, where Malcolm and Sarah are based.
For example, in St Helens in Tasmania, where we're seeing a lot of new species arrive, they're quite positive impacts for the recreational fishing community. Some of those impacts, however, are negative on things like rock lobster and abalone, where we've seen downturns in the production of those species. So other species, which have been the incursion of the urchin species, has been a bit of both. It's impacted the reefs to the extent that that has a negative impact on the lobster fishery, but at the same time it's also created a new small niche market for urchins, and so there's a small industry that's developed from that. So it is quite a complex situation, and a lot of information isn't getting out to communities, and so we've developed a web page.
So the website that we've developed is called Coastal Climate Blueprint, and it is coastalclimateblueprint.org.au, and on the website you can not only look at lots of information about climate change and the marine environment, but you can also what we call create your own blueprint. So you can go through a series of questions, and the questions are around species that are being affected, about different climate drivers and different sort of socio-economic characteristics of your area. And if you answer the questions in the quiz, you'll end up with an estimated figure out of 10 as to how your community is either vulnerable or resilient to climate change, and it'll give you some additional information in which you'll be able to see, look, we're actually doing quite well in terms of our human capital, but we're not doing very well in terms of our financial capital, or we're not doing very well in terms of our social capital. So you'll be able to break down how well you're doing on the basis of that. And so you might be able to focus your attention in terms of adaptation around bettering your scores in those areas. So it's a very high level type survey. It's not meant to be really, really detailed, but it does give communities an idea of the sorts of things they might want to think about if they think about needing to adapt to climate change. So the website has a Contact Us tab on it, and because it's an interactive thing, we'd like people to provide us with feedback so we can improve and update the website as we're going along and keep the information relevant to what people are interested in knowing about.